All right, everybody. Hey, I'm Mike Muldoon, and welcome to this month's Seacoast Small Business Spotlight. Thank you for joining us for September's Seacoast Small Business Spotlight here at CoWERC. I'm joined by Dave Hamilton, who's joining us tonight. I'm really happy to join us here.
Yeah,
so
thanks for
so much.
having me.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about Dave's business and what he's done over the course of a couple of years.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
One or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes it seems short. Sometimes it seems like an eternity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is part of having a small business.
Yeah, I think it's part and parcel. Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
We'll get into that and talk a little bit about that. But before we get too much into that, I do want to thank our sponsors for this Seacoast Small Business Spotlight in September. And one of those is Experimag. Experimag is kind of the place where you go if you might have something that's a Mac, hence the name, that is maybe like vintage. So maybe it's a couple years old, something that maybe Apple won't repair because it's out of warranty, so to speak. Or you have an iPhone or an iPad or maybe an Apple Watch, right? Mm-hmm. You could need to that, and you need the screen fix. So they are located at Islington Street in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they're our sponsor tonight. They also, as of this month, have opened another location that's in Manchester, New Hampshire. So if you're in mid-state, type of thing, or if you're in Portsmouth, go ahead in there. They sell used Macs, iPhones, and they will buy them from you as well. And right now, I think until the end of the week, they do have a special, their kind of back to school special. So go ahead and check that out. But we want to thank them very much for sponsoring the Seacoast Small Business Spotlight this month. We also want to give you a little bit of a tidbit, something else we're going to be doing that's local. At the Barley House, which is located in Northampton, we're going to be basically having what we call Tech Tuesdays, and that's starting this Tuesday, the 18th. And what we're going to be talking about is a little bit for parents. So if you've got kids, do you know how to be able to set up their devices? Do you know how to set up your internet connection? Because in today's realm, it's a little bit different than where you and I were. Although you were doing some stuff back then using, but that was like a coupler and a phone.
I had an acoustic coupler.
Acoustic coupler. Yeah, they don't. Well, they still have them. I'm not sure.
No, but my parents had no idea what I was doing.
Right, so very similar type of thing.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you are a parent and you don't know what your kids are doing, this Tech Tuesday is for you. And guess what? They're also going to give you 15% off your dinner. So come out, have dinner, learn how to maybe know what's going on in the tech world a little bit more. Hopefully, we give you some insight to that. So, and with that, I guess I did my plugs. So
hey, there you go.
Which do you ever do those? Ever?
Occasionally, once or twice.
Okay.
I mean, I do have to put a roof over the head.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. But like
you do,
if you have good sponsors, they become partners, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, really, we're really fortunate that most of the time our sponsors with everything that we do are people that we are happy to be affiliated with.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is good too. Yeah. I like to know my sponsors for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Definitely with it. So with that, Dave, we're going to get into a little bit about you and about your business. But I guess some people might not know who you are.
Right.
And I'd say where you came from, but a child asked me that today, and I kind of gave them like the womb story, and we don't
like that story.
No, we don't have to go that deep in it, but maybe where you grew up and how you came up to New Hampshire, because that's where you live now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm Dave Hamilton. These days, I run a few businesses. The one that is the most popular is a website called Mac Observer, or the Mac Observer at macobserver.com. From that, we've spun off several different things. One of them is our Mac Geek Gab podcast. And another is a business called Backbeat Media. About 6 months into Mac Observer, we figured out that we needed to generate revenue. And that was happening through sponsorships. We also needed to figure out how to manage servers and all of these things, because 20 years ago, that kind of stuff wasn't just turnkey. And so we had a lot of our competitors come to us and say, will you do for us what you've done for yourself? We just want to publish our stuff. And so we spun off Backbeat Media to manage all of that and sell sponsorships. And that still exists to this day. And mainly is sponsorship sales, although we do still manage hosting for several of our longer term partners. Yeah. Yeah, we are a take publishers headaches away business, and there were a lot more boxes to check to do that 20 years ago than there are today.
Yeah. So that's about 20 years ago, Mac Observer?
Mac Observer will hit 20 this December.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, happy anniversary.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I know.
What do you do for that?
Probably go to work and
sure.
I mean, it will happen.
Because that's what you do.
It will happen on the 28th. I think the 28th. I should know of December, but it will be in between wanting to spend time with our families for Christmas and holidays and all of that, and getting ready to head off to CES. So it's not really a calm time of year for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So it was like a leap year, maybe, kind of.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except that's different.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tax wise.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, because you'd be 5 then. If it was leap year.
You'd be 5. Yeah, that would be
Right.
handy
Right.
at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Business-wise.
I always wished that I had organized our businesses on a taxable year that ended March 31st, not based on the calendar year. Because we always have, it used to be Macworld Expo, but now it's CES. We always have a huge trade show right at the beginning of the year. And so we need money to go do it. Sometimes we have things that generate like significant amounts of sponsorship revenue, and trying to like manage that and float it across the bar line, as it were, of the end of the calendar year, which is also our fiscal year. It's like, hindsight, it's 2020, man.
Right.
I didn't mean to get like
super
advanced nitty gritty.
No, but
it's not super
but,
advanced.
No, but that's part of it. But that's honestly part of like people watching here and looking at who run a small business. That's part of a small business.
Yes.
Like that's something you realize if you have a major thing that's front loaded at the beginning of the year, and you're looking at capital, and you say, well, I have or I don't have money, or do I want to spend it so that I don't? Well,
the idea is to be cash flow neutral. Every year, right? And so you want to spend what you've earned so that you're not paying taxes on money that you then have to spend later. And that's why having a bunch of money in the bank on December 31st sucks if you're going to spend it on January 6th.
Right.
Because you're paying taxes potentially on this money. And depending on how you set your business up, and this is why it's good to have an accountant that is smart and will listen and all of that. But you can set up your company in the accruals method, or you can, it's not wrong. You can hold some deposits. Maybe if you get a deposit on the 20th, you don't make it to the bank until the 5th. Well, now that's in the next year. You're counting it as taxable revenue, so the IRS doesn't care. It's not like you're hiding it.
They're going to get it at some point.
They're going to get it at some point. You're just shifting it around to be advantageous from a tax standpoint. That's all.
Sure.
But check with your accountants before you do any crazy things I suggest.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me.
Right, like with medical advice, you can or can't listen to me, right? Type of thing, but you should still check with your doctor.
Definitely check with your doctor about your corporate accounting.
Right, for sure.
For sure.
Because they're usually good at that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So with that, where'd you grow up?
I grew up, I was born at an early age in Norwalk, Connecticut, which is in the, essentially, we were down in the sort of the southwestern corner of Connecticut, which made us more of a suburb of Manhattan than part of New England. Right. Although we certainly had bits and pieces of both. And so I grew up there, lived there until I was 21, maybe 22, something like that. Sure. And I did an interesting thing. I took a trip out west to visit some friends, and we drove from Colorado to the Grand Canyon and back. And it was, I'll never forget this day. It was 10 p.m. One night. We were just outside of Flagstaff, and we were stopping to get gas. And, I went into the little, whatever it was, convenience store to get, maybe a soda, or, some chips or whatever. And I noticed 3 things. Well, you could buy liquor, guns, and ammunition all at the same place at 10 o'clock at night. Now, in Connecticut, liquor sales stop at 8 p.m.
I lived there in Fairfield.
Right.
Fairfield,
So all these things were blowing my mind. But what really impressed me was every single person there looked me in the eye and said hello to me. And coming from an area where space is at a premium, the density of being, the human density of being close to Manhattan, you create your own space by doing this, right? You look down, you ignore people, and so you create space that doesn't exist. And that made me realize things were different elsewhere. So I posted a message to Usenet. I decided it was time to live somewhere else.
Wow.
Describing where it was I wanted to live without giving any indication as to where we'd visited or anything like that. And the 2 places were San Francisco, Bay Area, and Austin, Texas. I got a bunch of responses back. Usenet was like pre-internet. I would say parents ask you, or kids ask your parents, but parents, you might have to ask somebody else.
Or Wikipedia.
Wikipedia,
right.
Yeah. And like message forums or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's when we moved to Austin, and that's where we started Mac Observer. So.
Okay, so it's a Texas-based company.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is, which is actually, as it turns out, a great company, a great state to organize a company in. I have
Okay.
several there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Little did you know, really.
No, it wasn't
Potentially that.
intentional. No,
Right.
it's like Texas, Nevada, and Delaware are the three for slightly different reasons that you might want to choose.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
serendipity.
Yeah,
Somewhat.
totally.
Yeah, let me move there because interestingly enough, had you moved to California, well,
I
that
already
could be a
have
way
problems with
longer show.
California.
That could be a way longer show, right? Right. Much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we moved back to Connecticut because we wanted our kids to know their grandparents, and then we remembered why we left Connecticut, and 4 years later we moved up here to New Hampshire, and we've been here ever since.
Yeah. Okay. So and Durham.
In Durham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of what led to picking New Hampshire, Seacoast type of deal with it. Okay. So you started the Mac Observer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think oftentimes you just don't go, well, I'm just going to start a business, right? There's something that led you to saying, I want to start my own business and work for me versus work for somebody else.
Yeah.
So what was that led you to make that, I'm going to call it leap type of thing, because I think it is, or choice, we'll just say.
Yeah. Well, so when I was a kid using computers, and I don't know what led me to this, but I decided I wanted to be a computer consultant. Like, I thought that would be a really cool job to have, where I could help people with their computers. Because I was kind of doing some of that anyway, right? You know, that's just how it was. And so that was always in the back of my head, and I did some bits and pieces of that, but then, you know, you need to earn money, and you find an existing company that's sort of, you know, a going concern, and they have extra cash flow, and they hire you. So I found a company. They were called Citibank at the time. I think they still are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did some work for them for a while, and then I had some other little gigs, but with the company like GE and some others like that. But Citibank was cool. We did a really cool thing. I was in their home banking division.
Okay.
And so we had a dial-up service that you could bank from your computer.
Oh, nice.
But people didn't trust that. Some people didn't trust that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
nobody does that today, though.
Right. Yeah. Well, they didn't trust dial-up, but they certainly were happy now to, you know, connect to their bank over this distributed system, but whatever. So we created this thing. It looked like a telephone, like a big desk telephone. It had a screen on it, like a reflective screen, not an LCD screen, because this
didn't exist.
Yeah, it didn't exist. And this tiny little, really inconvenient pull-out keyboard, and a smart card 20 years ago.
Smart cards.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep. Which now we finally all have in our pockets.
Right.
And this thing did exactly the same thing your computer did. It was just an IBM PC XT crammed into this box that we built that looked like a telephone, and people could do their banking on it. But it was the same thing. It had a modem in it. It would dial up to the same service, and it wasn't any more secure. Right. It had our name on it and whatever. And it technically was more secure because you could take the smart card out, but nobody ever did. They all left the smart cards in. So it was actually less secure than your computer, but that's okay. And so I did that, but I realized things moved really slowly for me and got really frustrating. And it was at that time that I had this experience outside of Flagstaff and knew I wanted to move anyway. And so I sort of negotiated with Citibank to turn me from an employee into a 3-day-a-week contractor for the same money.
That sounds like a good.
Which was a good.
Yeah.
It was one of my finer negotiating days. And so I did that for a little bit, saved up a bunch of money, and then started doing some work for other people, and then we moved down to Austin.
Okay.
And when I got there, I partnered up with a company called Computer Nerds that was essentially doing the same type of thing, helping people. Sure. They were like pre-Geek Squad.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I partnered with Lee Robin, and he and I worked together for a long time. We've realized eventually that we were better friends than business partners. And so he bought me out. And right about that time, Brian Chaffin came to me with this idea to buy a website that he used to write for called Webintosh.
Okay.
And that
sounds
like maybe an Apple-based website.
Sure.
Right? And this was just about almost exactly 20 years ago.
And they didn't have enough lawyers back then.
Well, right. And so we started heading down the path of, I had some free time. I was still working. I had a lot of clients at Computer Nerds. So I even after I sold my interest, I was just, working in the field. Again, back to 3 days a week. Look, if you ever can organize your life so that you work less days than you don't work and you can earn a good living, don't mess that up.
Yeah.
I have messed that up every time that I've had that scenario because I feel like, oh, I have to do something else.
On the other days.
On the other days,
Right.
when instead I could be, like eating wings with friends and flying airplanes. No.
Right.
I did that.
Which is good to do separately.
Yes.
Yes.
You can do one and then the other.
Right.
Just not at the same
I just want to
time.
be clear for everyone. Not right.
Right.
Just,
If you're going to have beer with the wings, then that definitely has to be after the flying of the plane.
Right. Because your wheel might fall off.
Right. That's bad. So we bought Webintosh, and we went through the process that I now would know to call due diligence, but we didn't know what to call it. And we found out they did not own the domain name Webintosh. So we started asking them what it was they were selling. And that brought the price down from something that was already just low to even lower. And so we bought it. I was able to wrangle control of the domain long enough to have it point to whatever our new site was going to be. And so that's how Mac Observer was born.
That became Mac Observer.
Yeah, because we had to change the name. I didn't want to build a business based on a name we didn't own.
Right. That's
thankfully,
again, probably another good piece of
lesson.
advice, right, for people out there. Like, don't do that type of thing.
Yeah, so that's a really long way of answering your question and saying I don't really have an answer. It's that I learned that I couldn't work for other people, and so the only alternative is to work for myself.
Sure.
Because as I pointed out, I'm not good at not working, even when I have days where I don't need to.
You self-imposed it, and
right.
It still didn't work.
It still didn't work. So it really, and I would say to anybody wondering if you want to start a small business, if you're wondering, you probably don't want to start a small business.
Yeah.
It really, because it's not always fun. No. In fact, to most people, most of it's not fun. It looks fairly glamorous,
like this, right?
From the outside. Yeah, because it's like, wow, you have all this flexibility of your schedule and you can do what you want. And look, you get to choose your own path. It's like, yeah, but you have to, there's no path. You have to make your own path. So, and that sucks sometimes.
It does.
You got to just grind it out. It's really not that much different from having a job, except no one's telling you what to do.
Right.
And that's simultaneously liberating and frightening because it's often way easier when somebody says,
no one's giving you, Dave, here's your schedule.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, there's days when it's like, oh yeah. Okay, I'll go back to that. That sounds good.
Right. Yeah.
But I know I'm patently unemployable. So.
Ah, there you go. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good T-shirt.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't wear that to a job interview.
Right. Yeah. That's a good one for sure.
So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. But I think, so, you kind of move, you realize you got to get out of Connecticut for some reasons, which are there. Trust me, I live down there.
Yeah, it was just, I needed to change pace.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I missed my family when we left.
But the question is, you kind of went and you started a small business. How'd you learn about a small business and starting it? Because that's not just something you go, okay. I mean, I know you went and did that, but that you kind of went over that real quick. Which I don't think is the case.
Well, you kind of have to go over that real quick. You can't get bogged down in the minutia of managing your business plan or coming up with pro forma budgets and all of that stuff because it doesn't matter. You just have to manage cash flow and then learn how to do the rest.
Yeah. But
manage cash flow first because it doesn't matter if you're turning a profit. If you don't have any cash, you're out of business right away.
Pretty much.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Usually in today's world.
Shut the doors.
You got to you got to fire people, shut the doors, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. So, I did when I was, and I mean, we were already sort of there with Computer Nerds. Lee had the structure set up. He was making it up as he went along, just like we all did, and all still do. So, we learned together. In that sense, it is nice having a partner. I've always liked having a partner. It's someone to be accountable to. It's someone to commiserate with because you can't really commiserate with employees once you start hiring them. That gets weird when you say, oh, yeah, it's been an awful day. I don't know how we're going to make payroll. You can't tell your employees that.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sit well. They tend to leave.
Right.
And for good reason.
Yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
understand.
Yeah.
But you need somebody. But and you get to learn together and you make mistakes together and all that stuff. So I was always I like accounting. Yeah. I always did my own taxes. I know it's weird, but I liked it. I trained QuickBooks a lot for other small business owners.
Okay.
And that's a great way to learn.
Yeah.
Is training other people and listening to their questions, and then you learn more. When it comes to computer consulting and training, you really only have to remain about half a step ahead of whoever it is you're training, and you're fine.
Right.
And so I'm pretty quick with computers and stuff, so that was never a problem.
So
I learned a lot about small business accounting by training people in small business accounting.
Right. Kind of a little of that.
Trial by fire a little bit.
Did you see anybody when you were younger though? Like, I mean, because I guess when I look at entrepreneurs and things like that, I hate to do the lemonade stand.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But I would say a fair amount of people have that lemonade stand thing, or saw somebody and did something and saw that piece. Because I think they just picked that up and they're like, that looks interesting, what that person's doing.
Yeah.
Did you have that type
in
of
retrospect, moment? I can say that I did, although I wasn't, it did not dawn on me at the time, although it's clear I learned many lessons from this. My grandfather, he didn't start the business officially, but he and his cousin together started what became his cousin's business, a company called Tower Optical Company.
Okay.
Which, my grandfather was an inventor, and he invented those oval-shaped viewing machines that you see at beaches and Empire State Building and everywhere else, right?
Absolutely. Still do.
Absolutely. Still do.
They're still there. Yeah.
So, and they started that business, just the two of them. And it still goes today. So and my grandfather was one of my favorite people in the world. And, we spent a lot of time together when I was a kid. At least one day a week I would spend with him. And so I was always at the shop because he would, even on a Sunday, if we were together, he had to stop by the shop. And he sort of knew everybody in our town. And so I realized certainly in retrospect that a lot of that rubbed off on me.
Sure.
And so there was that entrepreneurial spirit, sort of the wanderlust of traveling around and doing business and all of that. He definitely paved that. But the first business I had was in college. I needed to earn money one summer. And so, a friend of mine and I started a lawn care. I mean, we mowed lawns, a lawn care business.
Yeah.
We mowed people's lawns.
Yeah. But I mean, hey.
And then the next year, again, this is where a partner, our first year together, we worked together as partners. We mowed every lawn together. We learned a lot. And the one thing we learned at the end of the year was like, oh, this was great. We had so much fun this summer. Can you imagine how much money we're each going to make next summer when we don't have to work together? Because it was massively inefficient, the way we were mowing lawns to do it together. It was stupid. But it wasn't, because we got to learn. And so the next summer I was on my own, he was on his own.
Yeah.
And again, it's like that, you got to do the numbers and run the numbers, and you have to do your advertising, and you have to get clients and, manage your costs and all of that stuff.
Well, that's I guess, time for money business.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah. You're trading your time for money. That's it.
Right. Type of thing. Versus.
But it's not dollars per hour.
It's not.
So you can learn which corners you're allowed to cut.
Not dollars per hour. That's an interesting statement.
Well, right. But you learn, okay, well, if like I booked that lawn at $60 and I thought it was going to take me 3 hours, but I learned that I could do it in an hour and a half, right? If I follow a different path through this lawn or whatever. And it's still $60, right? So it's not dollars per hour,
right?
And
you're 100% right.
So you learn where shortcuts can actually be valuable.
I think really the statement is some people learn that.
Correct.
So and I think that's the important distinguisher of sometimes the successful versus unsuccessful business.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yep.
Is because I think if you don't learn how to be able to do that effectively, you're never going to learn to scale beyond yourself.
Yeah.
In some ways, I guess is what I would say.
It's true. One of the, you have to learn to pay attention to what you were talking about this before we started here tonight.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to recognize what you do in your business and what your business actually is and what value. So it's really easy to see what your current, cash generating, the value of the current cash generating activities is, because you count it,
right?
And it pays for everything, right? But you can't lose sight of the fact that, that's this, and there's all these other things that you've created in your business just to make your business run. And it's good to take a step back every now and then and look at those things and say, oh, wait a minute, like this could be a cash generating thing for us. And we already have some skill here. And my favorite example of this, I mean, it hurts every time I think about it, but my favorite example of this is 20 years ago, 19 years ago, when we started Mac Observer, everything was published by hand. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Because there was no WordPress or anything like that.
Yeah.
We used a program called Go Live, but we were just essentially manually updating all of these files. Like when you publish a news website, at the bottom of every article is links to all of today's articles, right? Well, we were changing those links manually when we published a new article and then re-uploading the entire site so that all the pages would have that. And my partner did that, so I didn't really worry about it. I was worried about, generating ad revenue and all that stuff. But then we had our first child, and she was born in December, and so I decided I was not going to go off to this Macworld Expo trade show that January.
Which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore.
Which doesn't exist anymore, right. But that January I wasn't going to go. So I said, I'll be the one to stay home and manage the site. You go. Because somebody has to manage the site. Like, this is how it works. It doesn't run itself.
Right.
So you guys funnel your articles to me, I'll do it. And so I went over to Brian's house and he taught me how to do it. And I was horrified because it was this system fraught with like multiple disastrous opportunities for human error and also really just inefficient. Like, I'm not going to do that. So the week between Christmas and New Year's that year, I sat and programmed from scratch out of whole cloth a content management system for us to use. And we used that for a very, very long time, like 10 plus years, this thing. And we built onto it and all that stuff. But I wasn't going to do it that way. I was going to automate this so that if I put a new article up, it automatically created all these other things. Like, why wouldn't I do that? Of course, what I should have done after I built that was realized, hey, other people might want this. And I could build, WordPress before WordPress was even a glimmer in someone else's eye. But I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I was too focused on, no, we needed this for our business and now we have it. Great. We can do the one thing that we make money from.
Right.
So I've leveraged some of those things, not that one, but some of those things over time. But that's not the only one that I missed. I mean, there's lots of them that I've missed.
But I don't think you can always look at them.
Well, hindsight, right?
But at the same time, like commiserating will never do you any good.
No. The lesson I've learned is try and pay attention.
Right.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it's like we built this content management system. What we built was not something I could sell to someone else.
Right.
It had to be like it would have taken a lot of work to polish it up and make it, universal and modular and all this. But we had the idea, we built the foundation, and then we stopped.
Today you build the idea, you show it, and make people think it works.
Right.
Then you take their money and build it.
That's right.
Which is
true.
Today.
That's today.
Today.
Yeah,
right. I mean, so that's kind of how it goes with those type of things with that. So so Mac Observer is the first business we've got, which then kind of morphed into
expanded into Backbeat
Media with it and everything else like that. So. You've got those type of things, and you're sitting there, and you said you could look back at your content management system and all those pieces. But
why do you keep bringing that up, man?
I don't know because I want to ask you what you would tell that 20-year-old version of yourself, maybe at UConn, or maybe that person standing, right in front of, that convenience store or something today, knowing what you know now. It might not be the content management system, but it might be something else.
Yeah, no, pay attention. And I don't know. It's an interesting question. I mean, that's the obvious answer is, especially, for me very specifically is don't put the blinders on too much. But I don't know that there's much I would do differently. But yeah, paying attention to those, look for those opportunities, because it took me a long time to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it, but I at least know I'm not good at it. Back then, I didn't even know it was a thing.
To look at the opportunity.
Yeah. It was just like, find a way to make money. I've always been good at just making money. Like I can find a way to make money, but those opportunities are the thing that actually allow you to build wealth.
Sure. Which is a different thing.
Which is a whole different thing.
Yeah. Which eventually allows you to do, obviously whatever you want, but some good or things like that to be able to do, because then you're like, I'm good.
Right. Yeah. And that's another good lesson is, but you don't need to tell a 20-year-old to be selfish, because that's generally pretty automatic.
Yeah.
As it should be. But that's the thing. Even, I've got a family now and all that stuff, but I always say, it's good to be selfish, because if you haven't taken care of yourself first, you can't take care of anyone else, right? It's the classic thing with when the masks come down on the airplane, what do they tell you to do? Take care of yours first. So you got to take care of it. Now, there's different degrees of selfishness, and that's why it gets a bad rap. But but you have to take care of yourself first, otherwise you cannot take care of anybody else.
I think unfortunately some people get in the selfless type of thing.
Yeah,
that's like
that's the only way to go.
Yeah, it's like
no, it's good to be. It's okay to be selfish.
I mean, my thing I always tell people is like, look, I take care of people like physical therapy wise, but you need to take care of. I try and convince them you need to take care of you so that you can take care of your kids, so you can take care of your parents, so you can do that. Like you
Absolutely.
have to do that.
Absolutely.
Type of thing. I'll share a story that it sits with that. Really, it's interesting. I think is taking care of a gentleman, and he inspects parts that go into satellites and rockets and things like that.
Yeah.
And he literally said to me, "You need to take care of me and get me better, so that I don't make a mistake while I'm at work and something happens to somebody else because that was a problem."
Yeah.
And that put perspective for me of like why you have to take care of that. You first.
You have to take care of you first.
And that could be financial, that could be
right.
physical, that could be all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of things. But I think sometimes that's a problem for small business owners, is that they don't take care of themselves.
It's true.
And that, I don't want to say infects, sounds like a bad thing, but the rest of the business.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that also is a question, like, what are some of the choices that you've made in life that you'd say make you who you are today? And that might be good choices of taking care of yourself. It might be, other choices.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's hard to look back at individual moments and say, did this matter? I chose to go to the school that we could afford for college, which was the University of Connecticut.
Sure. Okay.
Which is fine. It still is a very big school. It was a good school for, especially I was studying computer engineering. It was a little weird that they had internet access at the school, but didn't offer it to undergrads, even in the CS department. But that's a whole other story. Yeah. Yeah, that problem's been solved now. You can go there.
You would hope.
Yeah, no, it has. But it was weird. But anyway, I'm a drummer too, right? And throughout high school, always played in marching band, and that really, and just concert band and all that stuff, and that created my social structure, and gave me an identity beyond. It added to Dave the computer guy, because I certainly was Dave the computer guy. When I went to school, I decided not to join the marching band because I knew freshman engineering at UConn was difficult and I didn't want distractions. And so essentially, and this is easy to say with hindsight and perspective, I chose to walk into a sea of 25,000 students and do nothing to find a home there. And this was a mistake. I mean, a huge mistake. I hated it. It was, I never really engaged. I also had a girlfriend at home for the beginning of that, so I was always one foot out the door anyway. But the choice to not pursue music then was as awful a choice it would then as it would be for me now. As I say, everything good that has happened to me, I can draw a line almost straight back to something where the fact that I play music is the foundation of why this happened. Yeah. And so maybe that's both answers. Go back to the 20-year-old kid and say, don't stop playing, man.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Well, because it's probably related to something.
And I didn't stop playing.
Yeah, but you still play now, right?
Yeah. Even then I was playing, but just not.
It probably relates to some type of passion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess passion is something you have clearly as a drummer.
Yeah.
Right? You have a passion in that. And I guess if you looked at your talent as a drummer, how does that talent, and maybe it's that path, relate to your business and how you do things?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, right? Because a drummer, especially on stage in in any band, but rock band or jazz combo or whatever, the drummer is the foundation of that thing. And the drummer is also the onstage producer, sort of paying attention to everything that's going on, making sure that, that person's going to, hit this thing, or, that person's lost, so I need to find a way to reel them in, or, as a drummer, I'm always looking at the bigger picture and trying to just keep everything on track, in addition to whatever I have to do, right? And so that very much is a lot of those same skills and that same mindset really apply to running a business, because it's, things are always just sort of happening and it's in constant motion. And, as I always say, with live art, you're always as good as whatever you just did. But the beauty is you get to do something next, right? Immediately. If you create paintings or whatever, you create your painting. Okay, there it is. It's done. Now I have to go create another painting. Whereas, if it's live art, and you could be doing live painting, and I've seen people do this, but music's sort of the most easy to understand live art, or one of the easy to understand live arts, where you just play, and if you made a mistake or something, it's fine. Just let it go and move forward.
Yeah.
And maybe learn from it, but don't obsess over it, because if you obsess over it, the next thing that you do will be informed negatively by that mistake, and that's bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's pretty, that clearly that influences your business.
Absolutely. Because you're going to make mistakes and you want to learn from them, but you can't obsess over them, because that slows you down or stops you from doing whatever it is you have to do next.
Yeah, fear of the next note. Right?
Yeah.
And in some ways it's like fear of that next thing is the same piece.
Yeah.
Huh.
We had somebody on our podcast on the Small Business Show that said, and occasionally somebody will just say something. It's like, oh, there it is, gold. Don't make fear-based decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're almost always going to lead you wrong.
Yeah.
But we are wired to make them.
Yeah, literally.
At a very basic level.
This would be like 3 hours long. Because on that piece, but we are, right? It's like, hey, that's tiger.
It's a tiger, right? We have to make a fear-based decision now.
Right now.
Now.
You gonna fight it?
Yep.
Or you're gonna run from it?
Yep.
Right.
You get to pick.
What are you gonna do?
Yep.
And fortunately or unfortunately, because we have that inside of us, it's that you could call it, Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain.
Yeah.
Right. Type of thing with it, to be able to say, like, it's there, and how do you not turn it off? It's maybe nothing, because there's a healthy bit of it.
Oh yeah. Well, you want to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
It may lead you astray though.
But you want to recognize when your thoughts are coming from lizard brain versus informed decision. And then there's the gut that informs you too. And that, to me, that's different than lizard brain, because the gut is usually not, for me, when I think about, trust your gut, that's trusting not the part of you that's afraid, but also not the part of you that's overly analytical. It's, you have a feeling.
Yeah. And how often has that been something that's had you make good decisions?
Anytime I listen to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something, it and you hear it and you're like, yep.
Yep.
And for good or for bad?
Yep.
Okay.
The gut has for me always been right.
Yeah.
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 But it's a trick, because sometimes you can analyze your way out of saying, oh no, that's the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And usually no.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and anytime people say that, and I look at things, I'm always, my medical mind's going into it and thinking of like how true that really is.
Yeah.
And how true, I would say, usually there's cars. I'll say, like, if you look at it, there's the driver of the car and there's a car. And there's feedback that the car's giving you and to the driver. And sometimes that feedback isn't the right thing. The tire pressure monitor sensor might be on, but what are you going to do with that information?
Right. What are you going to do with that information? That's right. Do you react? Yeah.
You just pull right over right away.
Right. And I have to, and I don't mean to keep pimping our small business show, but my co-host Shannon Jean said something brilliant the other day when faced with deciding what to do. I've often heard people say, and I've said it myself, choose the more difficult path. That's the right one, right? But that's a decision where you're choosing something that you're framing as a negative, right? It's more difficult, right? And now, you can learn and you can hack your brain and trick yourself that difficult is a positive thing, right? And as a small business owner, you kind of have to,
right?
The way Shannon has done it is he reframes the question. He says, which path tells the best story in the end? And I want to be able to tell that story. So that's the path I'm going to follow.
And that old saying, if you begin with the end in mind.
Right. Well, it's exactly it.
You're choosing to tell your story.
You're choosing.
And some people forget that you actually do have the option to.
That's right.
Write your own story.
That's correct. Yeah. And you can pick the best story. So pick the best story and then just live that so you can tell it.
Okay. Well, so this is wonderful segue to my next question. You like aviation, right?
I do.
Things like that. And so oftentimes here on the show, we ask people a question if you have on a billboard, but I've asked it a couple times of saying, if you could put a quote on one of those airplanes that we live on the Seacoast, you see them going up through Durham, you see them going along the Seacoast, Hampton Beach or things, or something for somebody to see. And it said Dave Hamilton on the end of it.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
That's easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is.
Don't get caught.
Don't get caught. Okay, yeah. This is true. Okay.
It's good advice. It's the best advice you can give somebody.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Which now that I think of it completely, I would, having heard that for, I don't know how many episodes or as we talk like Matt.
Yeah. But that phrase, it is the catchphrase that we started saying early on, not at the beginning, but early on at the end of Mac Geek Gab. And it, for us, it was, sort of framed, really, we never explained it. And I'm not going to explain it. But,
okay.
But I'll get closer perhaps than I ever have.
Okay. Cool.
It did not start with Mac Geek Gab, but it certainly fits because we're helping people with their computers and answering their questions. And so it's like, look, don't get caught not backing up. Don't get caught, without, the tools you need, whatever, right? It fits because it's great universal advice.
Absolutely.
Yep. But it goes back. My brother and I started saying it when we were kids.
Okay.
And there's many different versions of the story I can tell, but it actually came from not one, but two different REM songs.
Okay.
Where that phrase is part of it. But that sort of got it into the lexicon. And then there was a moment where my brother just looked at this one guy as we were getting on the ski lift. And the guy, I don't know, in my brother's eyes, this guy just looked guilty. And so as we were getting on, he was the ski lift operator. He just turned to him. He's like, yeah, don't get caught. And we got on the lift and left. I'm like, where'd that come from? That's where it came from.
And that's where it came from. Yeah.
I mean, there's other reasons that phrase means things.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Which is cool because that leaves it up to a lot of your own interpretation.
Yeah. But it is good advice.
Yeah.
Like if you apply that to everything, like, okay, cool, we've got this good idea. We're going to do it. All right. How do we not get caught? And not get caught doesn't have to mean not get caught by the police.
Right.
It's, not get caught without enough cash to get to the finish line. Not get caught without whatever. Not without enough gas in your car to get home. Right? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, which is sound advice. I mean,
it's really the best advice you can give somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, in any business, in life, and all those pieces of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I like it. And I should have thought that that's what it was going to be.
I'm shocked that you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't.
I didn't until you did it. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course that's what it is. Right. That's what Dave would say. Yeah. Okay. That's good. I like it.
That's what Dave does say.
Dave does say that. Yeah, for sure. So if you've never watched the Mac or listen, well, you could, at one point you could have watched it. Yeah. You did that for a little bit.
Yeah. I want to do that again.
Yeah. Oh, you do?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. But you can listen to it, download the podcast. What number are you on now?
We just did 726 this week.
726.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 13 and a half years.
13 and a half years.
Yeah.
So it's a teenager.
It is a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That gives it a whole different. Does the dynamic of the show take that morph at this point?
Well, I mean, it's always been pretty sophomoric, hasn't it?
It has been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sure.
Yeah, type of thing. But if you haven't listened to it, you will probably hear "Don't Get Caught." Maybe at the end.
Maybe at the end. Hopefully.
Maybe in between someplace.
It might sometimes comes up in between.
Yeah, it comes up in between. Yeah. So that being said, you obviously produce the Small Business Show podcast, Mac Geek Gab. What other ones are you in? There's a musician one that you're in. What's the name of that one?
We do. It's called Gig Gab for working musicians.
Yep. Okay. Is there another one that you're on?
Those are the
three that
I produce.
Okay.
Yep. We have other podcasts at Mac Observer. The one I'm on more frequently is called Daily Observations.
Okay.
Where it's a short daily show where we talk about whatever has come up
in the day.
Yeah. But I'm not the host of that. I am an occasionally invited guest.
So it might be what oftentimes I'll say to people, like, what book would you give somebody or tell them to read or things like that. But we could go book, and you could say book to read, which could be interesting. Yeah. But book or podcast that you would recommend to somebody, or the last one that you recommended to somebody.
I'll answer both. The last podcast I recommended was there was an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, not the Elon Musk episode is actually pretty good and shows what
which just happened if you haven't.
Just happened, yeah. But it shows what a great interviewer Joe Rogan is because he makes Elon Musk interesting for 3 hours. And that is a feat. And there's a reason Joe's is the most downloaded podcast out there. But he did an episode with, what was his first name? Professor Weinstein from Evergreen State University, where they had this huge issue about a year and a half ago with what I'll call reverse racism, but there's no such thing as reverse racism. It's just racism.
Right.
And this professor had a very interesting story to tell. So that particular episode is the last thing I recommended to someone just this morning. Yeah. But in terms of books, especially books for small business owners, Scott Adams is a business genius, perhaps accidentally, and his how to fail at everything and still win big. Yeah. Kind of the story of my life is the full name of the book, and it's fantastic.
And so some people may not know him,
right?
So if I'll just
please do.
Some people may watch it. So he is who in terms of. What does he write, or what does
he do? He created Dilbert is the thing that you know him from.
Yeah.
If you know him from
anything. You may know Dilbert, but you may not look at the line. Of course,
and he's a crazy guy. You may or may not, he's very opinionated in terms of like his political leanings and basically every other thought he has. But his books don't get too religious in that sense. It's, at least not that book where it's pretty much, look, he'll tell you that, goals are for losers in the book. And that's because he prioritizes systems that allow you to win again and again and again. And he says the big problem with goals is when you hit it, your motivation drops. And it's true of many of us.
Yeah, he's a huge systems guy.
Systems. That's it. That's the only way he gets anything done. It's the only success.
Like, well, what's our system for this?
Right.
I don't know.
No,
type of thing. And some people don't have.
No, it's good to have a system because your business, in theory, if you have something that you can do that earns money and builds value, then you need to figure out a way to just do it over and over and over again.
Right. So one of the things he says, like the problem with goals, so he says with it, is that
I agree with him.
Once you hit it, you're kind of done and it drops.
Yeah, what do you do?
And that happens for people. It's like, hey, I want to make, some people might say, I want to make $100,000. And you just like, okay, what do you do? And there's the whole...
Never start with $100,000, by the way.
Well,
start with $100.
There's the Grant Cardone thing, too.
Yeah,
so you could go with like the 10X rule, right? And say, it's like, so you can contrary to it and say you should shoot for 10X of that and shoot for $1 million, because if you hit 500,000, you didn't hit your goal, but you'd still be happy or whatever. Right. But yeah, you should start smaller because...
Well, if you can figure out a system that makes $100, well, then you can do that system 10 times and make 1,000. And then you can do that 10 times and make 10,000. And then that 10, and now you're at your 100,000.
Kind of WordPress.
What's that?
WordPress.
Why do you keep bringing it
up? I don't know, because I felt like doing it.
Man,
I know.
in the knife.
Okay, right, yeah, I know. Because you said it. But because the system, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Right.
But that's essentially, if you look at, Backbeat podcasting, all the type of things, like how do you replicate that type of thing? And I think if you hit your goal, and you get it. So some people have a goal of like a certain dollar amount. Right. And the reason I bring that up is, some people will say, well, once I hit this amount of money, I'm retired. Type of thing with that, right?
Yeah.
Some people will say that. Like that's, there's a saying out there. It's like 60. It's not an age. It's a number.
Right.
Right. You hear that kind of back and forth. So I guess as we talk businesses, things like that, I want to get, if I say the word retired to you, what does that word mean?
Yeah, so I want to rewind though.
Okay, go ahead. We can rewind.
Because this whole...
We won't actually do that to you, but we're going to go back.
This whole idea of setting a number as your... Like, all I need to do is earn X, whatever, 1 million, 10 million, whatever the number is, and then I can retire. That seems like a really hard path to stay on. Because let's say your goal is 1 million, how are you doing when you're at 950? Right? Are you starting to slow down? Are you what a crazy thing to have done to yourself, right? Because everything we do hacks our brains. into thinking either positively or negatively about the next thing that we're going to do. And, I will tell you, as you get older, your motivation, your natural drive and motivation slows down. And so you got to trick your brain into making you want to do all these things. And so you have the ability today to trick your brain for tomorrow when you're going to have less energy than you did today. And maybe tomorrow is a year from now or whatever. Yeah. But don't hack your brain into that, because, man, like, think about it. You start to approach that and it curves off. Like, why wouldn't you just let it keep going? Right. So
you've already got the momentum.
Yeah. Why kill it just because you have some number in mind? Unless you hate what you're doing, but then change what you're doing because life's too short. Retired. I have these visions of, like, wouldn't it be cool to sit on the couch and do nothing? And I mean, like that sounds really good when you're in the midst of like a crazy day and you haven't slept for a few nights and whatever. But it's a fleeting thing, because if and when I do get the opportunity to sit on the couch, I start thinking, well, so the next thing I could do is like couch time. Any sort of downtime for me doesn't become downtime. I mean, in fact, I will often go and get in the shower or get in the car. And like, those are both really meditative places, because you're doing something, like, you're washing your hair or whatever, you're driving, but that's enough to distract you. And then your thoughts just get to go. And I know if I'm having trouble with something, I'll do that. And sitting on the couch and sometimes even like watching TV, that can be a little too immersive, can really help. So the vision of retired, I don't know what that means, because I can't, like, anytime I envision what that's like, it always includes, like, I used to joke about, I can't wait, when I'm retired, I'll get an ice cream truck. Yeah. Right? Because that would be so cool to go around and like deliver ice cream to people.
Right.
Like, this is a great thing. And immediately it's like, so I'd learn the routes and I'd realize there's like 4 routes that I want to do, but I can only do one at a time because it's just me and the ice cream truck. So maybe next summer I should get 3 more trucks and send 3 other people out on these routes. And then, okay, well, now I've got a system in place and look, it's kicking off a little bit of cash. And is that technically retired?
Right.
But that is what retirement looks like to me.
Right. And
starting an ice cream truck.
I think, okay. I like that.
So there you go.
So I've got it. So what will happen is you'll have the ice cream truck.
Okay.
And I will have the plane going overhead that says "Don't get caught."
Let's do it.
And then
deal.
And that's our plan.
Deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's
all right. So how much do we each need to earn to get to that? No.
That's a whole other show. It's going to take us a lot longer to be able to do that. But that is the part of it, because I think what does happen is that when you do have that idle time, as somebody would say, I think they're saying that what is it? Idle time is the devil's playground, or something like that, or idle hands is the devil's
idle hands. Yeah, sure.
The devil's playground. But we talked a little bit about this, like meditation and pieces like that. When you get that time and you do clear your mind, you have that clarity or enlightenment, often for the next thing.
Yes, that's
really what it is. I think that's a wiring of a brain of an entrepreneur or a small business person, is that you're not just like going to work to go to do the vacation. Your life is about fitting that piece in to all the other stuff.
The other stuff. Yeah. I've spent some time in, they call them sensory deprivation tanks, but they're not. They're isolation tanks. They don't deprive you of your senses. They deprive you of input to your senses. Mm-hmm. And you get that clarity of thought, and it's a cool thing. I highly recommend it. But the team at work is always petrified when they know that I'm going to be in the tank in the morning, because they know that the ride home from me, it takes I used to go in Portland, Maine, so it would be like an hour ride home. And the first 20 minutes, I'd be like, I'll chilled out. And then immediately, like, all the ideas would start to percolate, like really strong, clear, well thought out ideas are just right there on the surface. And I wired up my phone so that I could just constantly just dictate into it these ideas, and then tell my phone who to email them to, because there's only like 4 people that I would send these to. And so the ride home is just these constant, like I just, prattle off some idea for 90 seconds and okay, send that to Adam. Okay, great. Okay, now this idea and send it to Jeff or whatever. And so they always feel like, oh, he's going to be in the tank this morning. Oh, yep. Okay. Well, clear your afternoon and the next 3 months because there's going to be stuff to do.
So that's your retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like retired.
No, but I think the reason I ask is because I think that oftentimes for a small business operator, for an entrepreneur, it doesn't look like what it looks like to other people.
Right. Nothing does.
No.
I think if you, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say if you have that vision of retirement where you're just sitting on your deck and drinking beer and watching the sun rise and fall. I mean that's beautiful. I don't know any entrepreneurs that have that vision. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what that means.
Yeah, well, because I'd be like, well, if I can have that, then if I can have that here, well, why can't I have that here? And if I had those, well, why couldn't I have these as places where I could go to have these things?
So I guess if I wanted to stop, if I had enough financial freedom or whatever, and I wanted to stop working, I would probably travel nonstop, because otherwise I'd start doing something. But then then it's like, well, if I'm going to travel nonstop, wouldn't it be good to do that and play music while I travel nonstop? And now suddenly I'm building an infrastructure to do that, and that's not really any different. So no, I'm flawed. I'm a flawed human being.
Sorry, I don't judge you as being a flawed human being. I think it's more like it's a certain mindset.
Yeah, it is. I can't not see like, well, if I'm going to be traveling, somebody should pay for that.
Right.
It shouldn't be me.
Right.
Well, it doesn't need to be. There's a way to add value and use some of that to cover your costs.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to go over this because I like it. I mean, clearly you and I have known each other for a while and things like that. And we've kind of cursory had these discussions, but I thank you for taking the time to get into it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And I want to thank everyone for joining us as well, our studio audience. But I also want to take some time to take the studio audience, if you don't mind, if any of them have any questions.
Oh, sure.
Type of thing like that. And sometimes we get really poignant ones for potentially the youngest ones in the audience, which is actually
not surprising.
Really interesting with these things. But I want to just open up. Anybody else that's out here have any questions?
I'll throw one out
Sure.
about podcast length. I think because so many different walks of life, no time, plenty of time, long drive, no drive, follow podcast. When you choose the length, do you reevaluate that along the way, or do you just find what works for you? Are you following analytics? Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I can talk a lot about it, and I can tell you that we've studied it, we've looked at it, and the most downloaded podcast in the world today is usually about 3 hours long. That's that Joe Rogan show, right? So, and I don't think that has anything to do with its length. I think it has to do with the fact that it is interesting, usually. Yeah, there's some episodes that aren't, but by and large, it is interesting for all of those 3 hours. And I think that's the trick, is do something interesting and do it for as long as you want to do it, and can get a start and an end that is natural and that leaves people wanting to come back. That, to me, that's the answer. And so that, I mean, there's nothing wrong. In fact, we have some 20-minute shows that are super popular and therefore valuable in many different ways. And we have some 90-minute shows that are super popular and valuable in lots of different ways. But we've created shows that are whatever, an hour long, 90 minutes long, that have failed. And it has nothing to, and I've had the host say, wow, do you think it's the length? Do you think no, I don't think it's the length. I think it's about the content, and you're either not catering to your audience, or you're not finding the right audience, and this is, there's a business lesson in this, or there is no audience for the thing that you are trying to sell or deliver. And you know what? That's okay. It's time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I don't think. Go as long as you want. Short as you want. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the question. Appreciate it. Any other questions we have from the audience? No? Okay. I don't think we have any. That's
think so.
it. That was it.
No.
We got a question though, so it's
That's
good.
Good. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for it. Appreciate it. All right, so thanks everybody for being here this evening. I want to thank Dave again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For our studio audience, we a round of applause for you guys with it while you're here. All right, good. It's always good. Our studio audience with it. All right, so with that, we will end September's Seacoast Small Business Spotlight, and we'll see you back in October. Take care.